there's a little bit of setup that we have to do before we start this lab. So the first thing is your website. So you're going to go to the earthquake.usgs.gov and you go to this earthquakes map using that link that's in Canvas. Once you get here, we need to kind of set this site up so that we're going to be able to see everything that we want to be able to see. So up here in the top right hand corner, the first thing I want you to do is click on this gear up here, that when you hover over it, it'll say options. We want to include 30 days worth of data, and we want to include as many earthquakes as we can. So we're going to click on 30 days magnitude 2.5 plus worldwide. That way we'll be able to see lots and lots of earthquakes. It'll give us the most complete picture of what's actually happening on the planet. So once you have that clicked, then you can close the gear, and now you're looking at your United States again. But we want to see worldwide, so we want to see everything that's going on. So up here now in the top right where it says Zoom to, I want you to click on down, and I want you to click on the world. And now what you're going to see is the whole world. Now, you may or may not see everything that I have on my screen, because if you're doing the lesson too far after when I've done it, then it might look a little bit different because it's going to be updated daily. So you can kind of get a visual right now of what it looks like for all the different earthquakes that occurred over the last 30 days that were a magnitude 2.5 or more. Now, over on the left-hand side, over here, this shows us that right now there are 1,373 earthquakes that are in this map area, so all these circles. The circles themselves tell us if they're the color tells us how old they are. So like this earthquake happened within an hour of me coming onto the site. This one happened within a day of me coming onto the site. This one happened within the last week, and this one's older than the last week. So the color tells us when it happened, and the size of the circle tells us how strong the earthquake was. So the bigger the circle, the bigger the earthquake. The little circles, okay, you get the picture. So over here on the side though, this area here is sorted by when it actually happened. So if you look over here on the left, this first number here is the magnitude of the earthquake. So this was a 4.5 magnitude earthquake. It happened 22 kilometers northwest of Albarden, Argentina. It happened on February 11th, 2016 at 20:04:09, which means 20 is using the 24-hour clock, so this is actually 8 o'clock, so we'd take 12 is noon. Anything above that, you basically take 24. Sorry, so you have noon is 12 o'clock, 20 minus 12 is 8, so that tells us that it's 8 o'clock at night. So this happened at 8 o'clock on February 11th in Argentina. And it was 114 kilometers below the surface of the Earth. So this here tells us the depth on the right-hand side. So we have magnitude, we have the location, and then we have our time and our depth. Now, if I click on that particular one, all that information is going to show up for me here. And then if I go over to Argentina here, see it showed up in blue. So I can see that this was my actual place. It also gives me my latitude and longitude, which you're going to need to be able to map. If you don't remember how to use latitude and longitude, or you've never been taught how to use latitude and longitude, there is a YouTube link that's on Canvas that will show you how to, it'll walk you through how to do latitude and longitude, because you're going to be mapping your earthquakes and you're also going to be tallying. So we're going to try to get a rough idea of how many of these different earthquakes, how many of them were really deep, how many were really shallow, how many were really strong, how many were really weak, and so on. So we can kind of get a picture of where do most of our earthquakes, what kinds of earthquakes do we mostly get, and is that based on the location of where they're at. So this is that first part of the setup. Once you're here, then you're ready to start collecting data. So in addition to recording on your map the latitude and longitude and putting a dot where the earthquake happened, you're also going to be filling out this data table. So this is just a tally. So a tally, remember, is just that little, like a hash mark or a straight line going down. So when you look at your first earthquake, you're going to plot it on your map. You're going to look at what the magnitude of the earthquake was, and you're going to look at the depth. So for each earthquake, you're going to have 2 marks. You'll have 1 mark up here in what its magnitude and 1 down here in what its depth. So when you're done, you should have 35 marks up here. You should have 35 marks up here. To find your percentage of your earthquakes, you would add up your total number here, so we'll use that as n. You'll take your total number n, and you're going to divide that by 35, and then you will multiply by 100, and that will give you the percent of earthquakes. So that will tell us what percent of the earthquakes were actually less than 4, which ones were between 4 and 9, and so on. So that'll give you a better idea of what the average magnitude was and where do most of our earthquakes fall. You'll also do the same thing with the depth. When you have your depth, you'll add up all your tally marks to get your number of earthquakes, and you'll do the same thing. You'll have n, and you'll divide it by 35 because that's our total number of earthquakes. You're going to multiply it by 100, and that will give you the percent of earthquakes that are at that depth. This will allow you to do some analysis later on. Once we've collected our earthquake data, then we're going to move on to some volcanic activity. So you're going to use this link that's in Canvas, the volcano.si.edu/reports_weekly.cfm, and this is going to give us a weekly report. Now, in the earthquakes, there's a lot more earthquakes than there are volcanic eruptions, for one thing. But USGS doesn't have quite as nice of a system of showing us, like they do for earthquakes, how a volcanic activity happens. So we're going to use this site instead. It's only going to give us 1 week's worth of data as opposed to a month's worth of data. So we'll have to kind of keep that in mind. You are going to plot these on your map, just like you did with your earthquakes. I ask that for this, though, you use a red dot for your volcanoes. So your earthquakes are a black dot, and your volcanoes are a red dot. If you scroll down a little bit, so here's the map of where they happened in the world. If you scroll down here, you'll see this is the activity for the current week. And then you'll be able to see here are different earthquakes, and then it gives you some more specific information down here. And this is where you're going to get your latitude and longitude from, is from this area down here. You're not going to get it from the map, and you're not going to be able, you're not going to be able to get it from here. Okay, you're going to have to get it from down further on here. So you'll have, and you're going to have quite a number of earthquakes that you'll be able to plot on here, and it's going to be whatever shows up for that week. There's no way for me to tell you how many earthquakes there or volcanoes there will be that erupt in a certain week. So you're looking at where that ongoing activity is occurring. You're going to plot that on your map. Once you've plotted that on your map, so you've got your data for your earthquakes here. On your map, you've got both your earthquakes and your volcanoes. Make sure that your dots are nice and dark and heavy, because once again, you're going to have to take a picture of this and then submit the picture of it, unless you're really good in paint. And if you are, you're more than welcome to use paint. That's up to you. But either way, I need to be able to see the dots clearly, so that I know that you're getting what you need to get. Once you're finished with this part, then you go to the analysis questions. So collect your data first, and then go to your analysis questions. Once again, with the earthquakes, you want to collect your earthquake data in one sitting, because it'll change. If you go back to the next day, there's going to be more earthquakes that are added on. So you want to make sure that you're doing them all in one day. You can do your volcanoes and your earthquakes on different days if you need to, but please make sure you do all your earthquakes on one day.